I'm new to CS and I'm experimenting around right now with what kind of playstyles and what kind of practice is going to rank me up the fastest and how best to overall improve as a CS player. So in this experiment, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go 10 games in Premier and low elo Premier and play as aggressive as I can. By that, I don't mean perma-suicide or, just dying stupidly, which sometimes did happen. But I just mean not, shift walking, not lurking, not baiting your teammates, just being very aggressive and taking fights. Smart fights, if possible, but, being in there, pressing W, being ready to, go out on the map, take space, and be ready for the fights. So I played 10 games like that, and here's what happened. All in all, out of those 10 games, I lost 4, tied 1, and won 5 games. I can tell you personally, I enjoyed it more than playing a little bit more scared. I enjoyed it to a certain extent, and there are a lot of differences between what map you play on and if you're T or CT sided. For example, I thought on Inferno it was way harder to play aggressive on CT than it was on, for example, Mirage, or especially Ancient as well. There's more possibilities to actually pull off aggressive playstyle. On Ancient, for example, you can go pressure the B ramp or explode out a cave and try to take control of Heaven, or you could go outside mid and try to take control of elbow, or even push from A main, because usually A is, neglected and most T players go towards mid or B. So there's way more potential to play aggressive. As, on Inferno, the risk is way higher. Usually Banana is super contested, very hard to play aggressive, and if you do, it's a high risk, because if you lose that fight, beyond Inferno is basically, it's a fortress. So if you lose it early, there's low chance that you're going to retake it with your remaining members. Then of course you could play aggressive through apps and maybe push second mid or T apps, but there's so many angles where people can, stay or wait. You have very little information. It's just, it doesn't feel as good as it did on the other maps. Even on Dust 2, which is my most hated map by far, playing aggressive felt decent, because you can push up mid, you can push up tunnels, even A long, you can try to take those fights at the door if you get good flashes. Sometimes, if you have good timings or good info, you can even push catwalk or short and try to take a pick there. That felt way more comfortable than it did on Inferno. So make your own experiences, but that's definitely how I felt. There are certain maps where you can pull it off way better than on others. And that brings me to the difference between T and CT side. I think on CT, it is way higher risk and you should be way more careful than on T side. On T side, I think it was a lot more rewarding, not as punishable if you made a mistake while playing very aggressive and taking those fights. On the contrary, I think on T side, actually, I won a lot of rounds because I took the initiative and overwhelmed an enemy not expecting such an aggressive push. Overall, the pros, I can tell you that it is a confidence builder. Just taking the initiative makes you feel in control of the rounds instead of waiting and being scared and being cautious where the enemies could be. Taking that control, putting the pedal to the metal and going aggressive to one site, and also communicating that to your team just made it a lot easier to play. It turns into like panic on the enemy team. They might miscommunicate, give wrong information, or get blamed and flamed. So that is also like a mental warfare thing, right? So if you play aggressive and take a site early because you're running over them and they didn't expect it, then the enemy CTs that are left over have to rotate, and communication is a little bit messy, especially in low elo. So that's a big plus point. And like I already kind of mentioned, it catches the enemies off guard. In low ranks, players don't expect fast pushes, forward plays. So you can get easy frags. They might be, sometimes they're late on the spawn. Sometimes they're bad on the timing. Sometimes the communication is bad between who goes where. So someone's going to be late to their position holding the angle properly, and you're already running at them with your mech 10, with your whatever, and running over them. They're not prepared yet. One thing that is really important, and I think it gets more important the higher you get in elo, is you take more space and control of the map. And the more map and space you control, the more possibilities to play strategically, to rotate, to use utility, to cut off an entire section of CT players and take over a site. Then last but not least, the momentum you can generate, right? You can tilt the enemies, give your own team confidence, and aggression, can overwhelm or disorganize the enemy communication and the enemy teams. And one thing that is also really important that a lot of, YouTube videos coach you or tell you is that CS2 is all about peeker's advantage. And the more aggressive you play, the more advantage you have. Holding an angle, unless you're an absolute aim god with super inhuman reaction time or perfect crosshair placement, you will be at a disadvantage if someone explodes out of the angle, maybe even jumps to draw off your crosshair and then just runs you over. I don't fully agree with that playstyle, and I don't like it as much as I like the methodical counter-strafing, one-tapping, burst kind of playstyle, but it is part of the game, and it is really, really strong. I felt it myself, how different it is, and how much more confident I took all these fights because I was just running and gunning with SMGs or shotguns. Now, those are all the positives, but there are certainly cons, big cons. It is a very high risk, high reward kind of playstyle. One bad peek or mistimed push can lose you the round instantly. This is what I mentioned earlier. It kind of depends if you're playing T or CT. It doesn't hurt as much if you lose one guy on T. You know, you can still execute on another side or rotate somewhere else. But on CT, if you lose someone early and you have that information, like the enemies have that information, the round can be over in an instant. If they know that they just killed the anchor on B Mirage, or, you know, if you're aggressive on Banana Inferno B, and you instantly die, they instantly know there's maybe one, maximum two more players, and they can rush B altogether, take that site, and then the two A players are going to be stuck and unable to retake. It's also more punishable by smarter teams. So if they anticipate you playing that aggressive, because you do it over and over every round, they can just wait for you to push and be ready with one or two people. And then no matter how good you are, chances are if lucky, you're only going to trade. Maybe you're just going to get shot down. They could also use utility to block your vision, or use molly or nades to slow you down or even kill you. I think the higher elo you get, the more intentional and smarter you have to be about when to play aggressive and how aggressive you play. I've had many moments where I overdid it a little bit and ran into 3 people, or I died instantly first round because I just over peaked, or I just flipped away my life a little bit too often and too much. And this is something, probably one of the most important things, you know, the mental warfare and the tilting and frustration goes both ways. If your push and your aggressiveness is successful, you might tilt the enemies. If it's not, you're probably going to tilt your teammates, and your teammates are going to be super angry that you always die in the first couple of seconds of the round, leaving them to fend for themselves, especially again on CT side. Another thing is you autopilot more. It's more tunnel vision. Constant aggression might stop you from thinking about utility or rotations or team play, or you disregard communications a little bit more. And that happened to me as well. I just, you know, went full run, jumped around and tried to find any fight I could, not realizing that my teammates were, you know, heavy on A and I was leaving B open. You know, it works in some lobbies, it works in some rounds. If you win the first pistol round, or if you know the enemy's on an eco round, hey, go as aggressive as you can. Take an SMG and run them over, for sure. But once you climb higher and once you overdo it, or the players are a little bit smarter and adapt, they can shut it down, and you need to take it down a notch again a little bit. Right now, and that was the purpose of this video, I think in my rank, play more aggressive. That is definitely my recommendation. Overall, it is the better playstyle, I think, so far. You know, I'm still yet to test all the other playstyles and make videos about it. It's also a very small sample size, only 10 games. Maybe I'll do a bigger video in the future with maybe 50 games. Overall, I think it's a good rule of thumb to play a little bit more aggressive and take a little bit more fights with your team. That's it for today's video and today's experiment. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you soon with the next one.